Today, we're going to talk about a tech story that is just, well, it's basically a modern epic. It's all about how two absolute titans of the mobile world, companies that seemed completely invincible, were brought down by one single device that they just never, ever saw coming. Okay, let's get right into it.
Right here, this quote. This is the kind of confidence that gets carved onto a company's tombstone. I mean, think about it. It's 2007, the iPhone is being unveiled, and this is the official take from one of the most powerful people in the industry. He wasn't just a little off, he was catastrophically wrong. And that's the big question for us today, right? How did this happen? This isn't just a story about a new product winning. It's about how two giants with all the money, all the talent, all the market share in the world could be so completely blind to a revolution that was happening right in front of their faces. To really get the scale of this collapse, we first have to go back in time. We need to appreciate just how untouchable these two companies really seemed. You know, they didn't just lead the market. For a lot of people, they were the market.
Just look at this. The sheer scale of Nokia's dominance is frankly staggering. We're talking 40% of the entire global market. In 2007 alone, they sold 110 million phones. Their supply chain was the best on the planet, and their hardware, legendary for being indestructible. They were an absolute juggernaut.
So you really had these two kings, and they were ruling separate but massive kingdoms. Nokia was the king of consumers. I mean, they had a phone for literally every single person. And BlackBerry, they were the undisputed king of business, of government, basically anyone who was serious about email, all thanks to that keyboard and their ironclad security.
And then, on a single day in January, a new device was launched, and it didn't play by any of their rules. It wasn't just some new phone. It was a completely new idea of what a phone could even be.
You can see it right here, plain as day on the timeline. 2007, that's the inflection point. Before that, you've got the era of Nokia and BlackBerry. But after, you've got the birth of the app economy, a whole new world that Apple was about to create and then completely own. So here's the crucial thing to understand. Apple changed the game on three fronts all at once. It wasn't just that beautiful touchscreen that everyone noticed first. It was having a real, complete computer operating system in your pocket. And this was the true killer blow, the App Store. An entire ecosystem that turned a phone from a communication device into a limitless tool. And this just perfectly illustrates their failure to see what was really going on. Nokia looked at the iPhone and saw bad hardware. No keyboard. You can't even swap the battery out. BlackBerry saw it as a toy, totally useless for their serious business customers. They both completely, totally missed the software revolution it represented. So how in the world did this happen? I mean, their reactions weren't just simple mistakes. They were symptoms of much deeper, fatal flaws in their thinking. So let's break down the three key concepts that really explain their collapse.
Okay, the first big idea is something called strategic myopia. The best way to think of it is like corporate tunnel vision. You're so focused on winning the race you're in today that you don't even notice the racetrack itself is changing into a completely different sport.
And here's exactly how that played out for them. Nokia was the best hardware company in the world, period. So they kept trying to win on hardware. They totally missed that the phone was becoming all about software and services. And BlackBerry, they made the best email machine. So they just kept perfecting email, and they missed that phones were becoming platforms for games, social media, and video.
Next up, a true classic, the innovator's dilemma. This is what happens when you get so good at giving your existing customers exactly what they want that you completely ignore the new thing that your future customers are going to want even more. It's a trap, and it still catches industry leaders to this day.
And this is where it gets really ironic. Their greatest strengths actually became their biggest weaknesses. Nokia just couldn't abandon its Symbian operating system because, well, it powered hundreds of millions of their devices. And BlackBerry's customers loved that physical keyboard. They couldn't even imagine a world without it, even as the market was clearly shifting to bigger screens for apps and media. And now, for the final nail in the coffin, they didn't get platform economics. The value of a phone was no longer just the device in your hand. It was the entire ecosystem of apps and developers built around its operating system. See, more apps bring in more users, which in turn attracts more developers. It's a virtuous cycle that just keeps growing.
Both companies lost this war, and they lost it decisively. Nokia actually had a chance to adopt Android and use its massive hardware scale, but its pride just got in the way. They thought they could build a better ecosystem all by themselves, and BlackBerry tried, but its App Store was a total ghost town compared to what Apple and Google were building, so developers just never bothered to show up.
So we've seen the strategic mistakes. Now let's look at the consequences, because the market's verdict was swift, it was brutal, and it was utterly devastating.
Get this, as late as 2009, that's 2 full years after the iPhone launched, Nokia and BlackBerry still controlled almost 60% of the smartphone market combined. They were at the absolute peak of their power. It seemed impossible that they could fall.
And then this, just 4 years later. The key takeaway from this slide is just total annihilation. Nokia and BlackBerry are basically gone. They're a footnote. The world now belongs to Android and Apple. A complete reversal of fortune in only 48 months. It's just unbelievable. Just let that sink in for a second. From controlling 40% of the entire global market, Nokia plummeted to less than 3%. It was one of the fastest, most shocking corporate collapses in history.
And BlackBerry's fate? Somehow even worse. The phone of presidents, of CEOs, reduced to less than 1% market share. In just a few years, they had become completely and totally irrelevant.
And this timeline here, it shows you the final gasps. Microsoft bought what was left of Nokia, hoping to compete, only to write it all off as a loss 2 years later. Then, by 2016, BlackBerry just gave up completely and stopped making its own hardware forever. The era of the old kings was officially over.
So why does the story from over a decade ago still matter so much? Well, because the fundamental lessons here about disruption, about myopia, about the power of platforms, they are more relevant today than they have ever been.
And this brings us to the final, really crucial question. The smartphone war ended with just 2 winners. So does that mean that these new technology ecosystems, things like AI and virtual reality, are they destined for the exact same fate? Will today's giants see the next iPhone coming, or will they become tomorrow's cautionary tale? It's definitely something to think about.